What if everything you thought you knew about Severance Season 2 was wrong? We all know Mr. Milchick as Lumen's most loyal enforcer, the perfect company man. However, this role that he is playing for Lumen is destroying who he is as a person. He tries to keep the severed employees under control by keeping them in line through both rewards and punishments. But what if I told you there's more to Mr. Milchick than just corporate obedience? Milchick isn't just a corporate enforcer. His actions reveal a deep need to be liked and respected. He wants the admiration from both the refiners and the Lumen higher brass, yet no one truly values him. But why? Since he is the perfect company man enforcing Lumen's rules with unwavering dedication, you would think he'd get more respect. But whether it's rewarding employees with dance parties or punishing them with terrifying consequences, he tries to balance it all without being too cruel or manipulative. What I think makes this even more terrifying is the fact that Mr. Milchick is the only one who treats the severed employees as humans, where the rest of Lumen sees them as less than.
You shouldn't let them have a funeral. It makes them feel like people.
So in this video, we'll explore his loneliness, need for approval, and the cracks forming in his loyalty to Lumen. So guys, don't forget to click that subscribe button before Lumen activates the overtime contingencies. But starting from the very beginning, Milchick was all about humane control. He kept the refiners in check, managed Ms. Cobell's expectations, and made sure Lumen's operations ran smoothly. But Season 2 changed everything. With his new promotion, Milchick found himself in an unfamiliar position, not just as an employee, but as a leader. And suddenly, things weren't so simple anymore. For the first time, he wasn't the one observing everyone, he was being judged. His promotion put him in a position of influence, but it also made him realize something uncomfortable. Being a black man so deeply ingrained in Lumen meant facing a new level of scrutiny that he hadn't fully acknowledged before. I think that puts him in a position of isolation. Not because he's the only black person in Lumen, because that's not the case. There's both Dylan and Natalie, both who he has a different relationship with than he has with anyone else. I don't know if you guys noticed that he did try to find a deeper connection with both of them, but we'll get into that a little later in the video. But now what it looks like to Milchick is that the very system he has devoted himself to was now suddenly turning against him. We even see his hands trembling as he's handling the paper clips, showing us that it's a deep psychosis and it affects Mr. Milchick in ways that even he can't process. With his need for companionship and validation, what can Mr. Milchick do about all of this? What I think is Mr. Milchick's biggest advantage in this situation is his ability to manipulate emotions. That's really what sets him apart. One moment he's leading a weird but joyful dance party, and the next he's restraining employees like he's a prison warden. He keeps the severed employees docile by offering them tiny crumbs of happiness, waffle parties, finger traps, dance breaks, ensuring that their world remains small, controlled, and predictable. Yet in those moments, I think he genuinely enjoys the camaraderie that he shares with them. Even though he looks like he's a tryhard, I think he's really trying to connect with them when he's doing these things. But when it's necessary, he's not afraid to remind them who's in control. And he does it in a subtle way and a not so subtle way. Like the way he threatened Dylan about his visitation privileges, or how he held Miss Hung's recommendations over her head. This duality is what makes him so effective, because he can keep them entertained just enough to prevent rebellion while instilling a deep fear of stepping out of line. But that also creates a rift between him and the refiners from ever truly connecting. And unlike Miss Cobell, whose devotion to Lumen seems almost religious, Milchick operates with an unwavering precision. He doesn't question orders, he doesn't hesitate, and he doesn't let personal feelings interfere. Even if he can't fully understand how to feel about a situation, or even if what is happening in Lumen is the right choice for him. But he does what needs to be done irregardless. That's where his need for validation comes in, because to the refiners, he's both a rewarder and a punisher. For example, he did not hesitate when it came down to dealing with Irving, putting Helena's life in danger. And it's this ability to shift personas that makes him far more terrifying than Miss Cobell ever was. And it works counterintuitive to his need to be liked and desired, because people never know where he truly stands. I don't know if you noticed that Mr. Milchick has had a unique relationship with each refiner. And it's not just the refiners, but with other Lumen employees as well. He tailors his approach to each of them differently. And I think there was a deeper meaning behind the Kier paintings. And transforming him into Kier was almost like it removed his personality, his uniqueness. And when he reached out to Natalie, she gave him a look. And we all know what that look meant, which further isolated him And if we're really talking about removing his uniqueness, I feel like his scene in front of the mirror added more to flesh that out, don't you think? Because we saw him dumb down his speech, but his speech, his anecdotes, all of that is what makes him uniquely him, and he thinks those fun facts are what makes people gravitate towards him. However, we see that that was a source of complaint, him using big words, his personality himself. And it's not just with Natalie that he has a weird relationship with, he also has a weird one with Mark, Dylan, and Miss Hung. With Mark, he plays the role of the friendly guide, always keeping things light and professional, but never letting Mark forget who's in charge, and quick to remind him. Throughout the first 2 seasons, he carefully observes Mark's reactions, testing how much autonomy he can allow before pulling him back in line. But beneath the surface of it all, I think Mr. Milchick sees Mark as nothing but an experiment, a subject he can mold into Lumen's perfect worker, especially with Mark being so close to finishing Cold Harbor. Drummond reminded Mr. Milchick during his performance review that Mark will achieve Cold Harbor under Mr. Milchick's stewardship. That's the kind of validation that Mr. Milchick so desperately craves. More so than actually being liked, he wants to be acknowledged. He doesn't want to be alone. Which is why I think he stepped to Mark in the elevator and tried to essentially blackmail him with the information about him sleeping with Helena. His relationship with someone like Irving, on the other hand, didn't need much intervention. Irving was someone who already believed in the rules. Milchick barely had to do anything to control him. And I think initially Irving liked him, so that relationship was cool until episode 4 of season 2, when Mr. Milchick quote unquote fired Irving for what he did to Helly. Almost with no warning and no talking, Mr. Milchick essentially killed Annie Irving because it was his duty, shocking Dylan most of all. And Dylan is where I think things get a little bit more complicated. Unlike the others, Dylan is fully aware of Milchick's system of manipulations and he plays along. And I think that's why Dylan is most likely the only refiner who actually likes him, only because Milchick found a way to get Dylan on his side. By using the visitation with his Audi's wife, we see Dylan refusing to help Mark or Irving earlier this season, which means that Mr. Milchick's manipulation is working, which is a strategy that Milchick looks like he's going to try again with Miss Hung. But let me ask you guys, do you think that Mr. Milchick thought he would be a mentor to Miss Hung before their relationship became a power struggle? I think their relationship is the weirdest and most complex breakdown of his character. Let's be honest, I don't think I'm the only one who finds it weird that she's a child. Am I? And what's even weirder about all that is that she is his assistant, which I think is a reflection of how Lumen sees Milchick. Think about it for a second. They essentially gave him a promotion and then replaced them with a child. Is that them saying that his job was so easy that a child can do it? Even with his promotion, they never upgraded his computer or anything until he put forth those complaints, showing that the value that he's looking for, he's not getting. Even when it came to his performance review, Miss Hung pretty much threatened him, and I think we all know she was the one that lodged the complaints against him. I mean, who else could it possibly be? We saw how deeply that affected him, to the point where even after he pseudo-threatened her, I think that affected him more than it affected her. Notice how in front of the mirror, his mind looked like it was cracking and reverting to an almost childlike state. Is this his mind finally snapping? Pressures of Lumen getting too heavy for him? And can Mr. Milchick survive the end of the season? I don't know, but I think Mr. Milchick is one of the more fascinating characters of this show. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comment section below. And guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, peace.